You are watching Xirtus.
You know, I mean, there's always some sort of situation that's somehow that comes up that has to do with that area of the body. And those crossbones are where Aquarius and Capricorn basically are crossed because it is those bones that are crossing. And then the skull sits on top of it, and that's the exact opposite point. And that's the head, and the head is Leo.
Nice. Oh,
So in the skull and bone symbol,
I mean, like you, Rahu and Ketu, right? One's the body and one's the head. And usually, you think with your head you want to be famous and all that stuff. That's all like Leo stuff, but it's fire,
So
and it is Aries also, right? So it's Aries sitting on the feet. The feet are touching Aries.
Right. As far as I know, the origin of that is from Jewish mysticism, just like palmistry. The way that they determined, at least they told me this in massage schools, the way that they determined which signs related to which parts of the body had to do with when a baby is in utero and taking what is like the equivalent of like a natal chart where you just have that astrological wheel.
Such an eclectic education.
How it fits in there. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, no, that was a thing. So like we qualified in massage school which parts were, you know, the pseudo science, but then even at the same time you're like, here's ancient science, here's what we now relate to things at whatever. But it was all kind of presented in perspective. But when it got to the electromagnetic energy field stuff, you know, he'd be like, if a student snickered or whatever, he was like, no, I'm not talking crystal hippie stuff right now. I'm actually telling you the actual science. It's measurable. Like, man, here's how we know.
I got like 30 crystals inside of this Raspberry Pi right here. It's like, this is an enchanted rock. You know, anybody who's telling you the crystals don't have magic aren't engineers.
That's a scrolling board. Let's be clear.
Hey,
Giant, so what do you think that
it's a scrying mirror with a scroll.
Giant, what do you think about the number 322 underneath the skull and bones, the Yale symbol?
Yeah, it's like it's right there where the feet are touching the head, right? So it's symbolic. Like, I believe that symbolically they're trying to point something out. They're trying to point out periods of, you know, when we were dying, when we were at the end, and we're going to go into this age of Aquarius. And then, you know, some people believe that the age of Aquarius is going to be the golden years, or it's going to be in Capricorn, one or the other. And it might be that it fast tracks into Capricorn really fast. It's not going to be the same amount of time that it took Pisces to go through and to hit Aquarius, right?
So
also,
they're marked in
spring
Pisces.
Equinox. Do you think isn't it the same March 22nd that there's
Yeah, so that's the equinox, exactly.
Isn't it the old number of days to the year? They had like a lunar calendar that had less days as well, which they had all these days at a time that they had to resynchronize every 19 years, you know?
Well, it falls back. The reason that they took 12 days off is because it fell backwards as the precession happened.
Yes, right, because you have the precession of the equinoxes, and then you have there's the tilt, and then there's the other it's the
wobble.
Yes. Which it sounds like precession, but it's called something different. I forget what that is now.
So that's why they think
for the ladies trying to get in touch with David Plate in the audience, you can probably find him on Twitter.
Yeah. So the Ophiuchus and I think we tweeted back and forth, me and you, David, about it, where I was trying to explain to you why Ophiuchus is not a 13th sign. That it doesn't make any sense to ever make a 13th sign, because there's tons of constellations.
It's like, for all intents and purposes, only because it lands on the ecliptic.
But it's a sign of a new age. That's what I try to show people, is what it's showing you is once we do process to where it's coming up, because it lines up with the Milky Way. And so once the Milky Way and the winter solstice are coming and they start to overlap each other, you got a gateway. That's called the Golden Gate, is right where Ophiuchus's feet are at. And then you add the gateway, and these, you know, elites and everything made the Golden Gate on purpose, because they knew that this time was coming, and they had to set the final Golden Gate.
So it's at the foot of Ophiuchus, and where the arrow of Sagittarius is directed and the tail of Scorpio. In that point in the middle, we have the highest localization of black holes in the known galaxy.
So if you go to Google right now,
galactic center.
They actually have an image as their background that illustrates kind of what you're talking about, which is just like, it's just right there.
Interesting.
Now. So I can't help but like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's odd. But that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and Ophiuchus has a sign that actually looks like the Einstein-Rosen bridge sign of the wormhole. It's a U, and it has a line through it. It's a wiggly line, right? Like electricity. So it's, once Ophiuchus is coming into this position where it's going to cross with the winter solstice, and we actually December 22nd now is entered into the galactic center. It's entered into the Milky Way. On the opposite side, you have the Silver Gate. So you have the Golden Gate and the Silver Gate. And if you look at the constellations that go over and that go through the Milky Way, there are constellations that have to do with Hercules and the trials and everything. So this all this information and all the astrological stuff, it's all symbols trying to show us, and this is why they put these characters. None of these stars are actually really even near each other. They're just in the same section of sky. So they have nothing to do. No one's,
are observable. And I just have to ask, because maybe I didn't catch it earlier. I'm impressed by your wealth of intelligence and how well spoken you are, Giant. What is your deal? How do you know these things?
I'm not any more intelligent than you guys. I look up to all you guys. I'm finding certain things that I'm looking for because, I started off searching astrology and trying to find out who I was. Right. That's what I think. Ophiuchus? No, I'm not Ophiuchus. I'm a Capricorn.
Okay. I'm Ophiuchus.
Keys to the kingdom are found through the self, right? So that's
exactly. So you find yourself first, and then it'll start unraveling more, because once you know certain things about yourself, you want to know more about yourself, right? So my journey always started with myself. It started when I was young. I grew up in the Bay Area. That probably helped, right? We're all a little bit,
They didn't stop us. We're a little bit extra. That's good.
You're a little weird.
Well, I would say this, the Ophiuchus, it's very clear in its own design that it's about being a war in astrology between two different systems happening, right?
Because they're happening, or a polarity.
Because you've got the man versus the serpent. It's not that they're conjoined. It's not that he's a man serpent.
He's healing with the serpent. So he's
definitely rubbing that serpent between his legs. Yeah, it's his Kundalini chakra, and he's.
It is said that this is the only sign the only constellation. Thank you. Constellation beyond the Zodiac of constellations that is actually about a real person that actually lived. And
what's that thing called? Like a washboard? I always imagine your chakras as a washboard, and then there's that serpent Kundalini you're pulling up through the washboard. You know what I mean?
They said that he was healing people with serpent venom. Mm-hmm. So he's like the original snake oil salesman that actually apparently was real.
So you guys are agreeing that Ophiuchus is the 13th hidden.
No, it's not.
I think it's a whole separate thing.
Well, you can make a 13 sign astrological wheel for somebody's birth, and it's a lot more challenging to do because it's an odd number. And I've had it done for me before.
You can break it. You can break it up into 1,000 pieces if you want to, and the nakshatras break it up. But it doesn't.
But the Mayans
So, but if you've got, let's say you've got a twin sun solar system somehow, right? And so one of the maybe a lot of this solar system is only solely connected to this Sol Invictus, which is the name of our star, right? And flat earthers, this is all Kabbalah. Let's just calm down. But it's flat, and it's flat too, so let's also relax. But Nibiru is supposed to be spinning around another right, but there's a black sun, or there's a twin star. Let's see the twin star, Star Wars. Just imagine it with that. Just visually, where's that scene? Where he's on? Come on, there you go. This is, there's a planet there that's in between. It's called Earth. It's in between both stars some of the time, or also Nibiru. And Nibiru is constantly spinning around the Sirius B star or whatever we're talking about. It might not be
subtext for Japan, man. That's Pink Floyd, the final cut. That's Two Suns in the Sunset.
I can't disagree.